Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Andrea Epstein, and you're listening to the Direct Impact Podcast. And we've got some guests. We've got Mary and Gregory, who have been on the show several times, both amazing clinicians and ready to bring their brilliance and their personalities to our audience. So today, what are we talking about, guys?
So today we're talking decisions, decisions, decisions. So in order to understand how we got somewhere, we must understand where it came from. So both the personal influence and maybe even cultural or familial influence. So who wants to start?
Gosh, decisions, decisions.
Mhm.
Oh, fun.
So where do we
Fun.
start, right?
Right.
Like just that pause right there was just all
Oh,
right. So
God. Okay.
let Mary start.
Okay. So decision making for me is, I'd say, difficult in many ways, just because one, I'm a people pleaser by nature. So even like, I'll say, like making a decision where to go for my birthday that's coming up. I'm thinking about other people, even though I know what I want to do, but I'm like, okay, is it going to affect them this way, that way? And sometimes I need that verbal processing to help like calm me down. Like, it's okay, just make the decision, we'll be fine. But I also think part of that people pleasing comes from the motivation of like sometimes a lack of motivation too, or rejection sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
I may not have an actual ADHD, diagnosis, but I do see lots of traits with neurodiversity. And I know my lack of motivation sometimes affects me with big decision making. And there's that resistance and avoidance. And it sucks a lot of the times because
Mm-hmm.
even simple things like when to do chores or when to wake up, it feels like I'm making such a big effort just to make that one big step. And then all my energy's gone for the rest of the day or the next thing I have to do. So decisions are hard, really hard.
And they do take a great deal of energy,
Yeah.
mental and emotional energy.
Hmm.
We've talked about it on the podcast in the past, but it's like, if you think about how many decisions you're making just from the time you
Hmm.
step into the shower and then you step out of the shower, do I wash my hair first? Do I use conditioner? Which
Yeah.
soap do I want to use?
Hmm.
What parts of my body am I going to wash? I mean, like all the executive functioning that goes into decision making. I mean, you mentioned like neurodiversity
Hmm.
and neurodifferent people, it does take more energy to
Hmm.
organize that process.
Yeah.
I love
Yes,
that.
yeah.
I think that's so important.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely say that, like, especially with my neurodivergent clients, I relate to them in so many ways, but especially like that decision making, because it feels like you're kind of like at a tug of war of yourself, at least for me, of like, this is what I want to do, but I'm afraid of what somebody else will think, or if I say the wrong, like, I want to make sure I say the right thing or do the right thing in especially a group activity or like socializing, because you're afraid of, okay, well, what are they going to think of me? And I think that affects a lot of people. I'd say, like I said, myself included, that we can't be our authentic self sometimes because it's almost
Mhm.
like we're curating ourselves for what the other person wants. And so that affects our decision of like being true to ourselves and our needs.
Mm, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Where does that filter come in to play the most for you?
I think a lot of it, like, I think just growing up, like maybe culturally, maybe just where, like, I don't know, I'm thinking like teenage years, especially, like, being seen that way, like, that's a pivotal moment for a lot of us growing up. Like, we wanna be seen and heard in a certain way, accepted in so many ways.
Mhm.
But I think culturally too plays, like, when I say people pleasing, I think community-wise. Like, my culture is very community-based. We think of family, we think of all these other people, and even I'd say religiously
Mm-hmm.
too, that plays a big factor in a lot of us, or
Mm-hmm.
spiritually, that we are not allowed to be selfish in our
Mm-hmm.
decision making. We have to think of others. It's beautiful, but like I feel like it takes away from ourselves that we can't enjoy what we are deciding for or make it our own,
Mm-hmm.
thing. Because I will say, like, coming from a Filipino perspective, sometimes those decisions are kind of making for yourself, like career wise, a lot. Like you are
Mm-hmm.
destined to be XYZ, and if you deviate from that, it affects you in some way because like your parents wanted you to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of balance like their wants to your wants, and sometimes that there's a discord in that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I feel like people pleasing is almost like too broad of an
Mm,
umbrella.
yeah.
Like I don't even know what I would try to say if I was trying to be more specific with it, but. Because it does result in people pleasing, but it's like not a little bit different than that.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I think we want to be giving and caring and generous and
Yeah.
compassionate and loving, but I also like truly believe that when you're first considering your authentic self and your own personal integrity, like that's when that feels like really good and you
Mhm.
get all of the benefits of those things. So like if you're not considering self first, then it becomes people pleasing, which means you're sacrificing self.
Yeah.
And that's just really scary and unhealthy. And
Mhm.
then you are not like happy about it or pleased or
Mhm.
fed by it, but you're resentful,
Yeah.
because it's not, it's not healthy.
Mhm.
And so like to me, that's when it like crosses that line to people pleasing. It's like, are you feeling the no inside,
Mhm.
saying yes, sacrificing self, and then building resentments? It's like, okay,
Mhm.
well then we're people pleasing now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's my personal perspective.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So what about you? What goes into your decision making? How do you come to a decision?
Okay, so my personality is extremely different.
Hmm.
And I know that personality is birthed out of childhood and parenting and messages received and all of that. I feel like in some ways, my family of origin, um, you know, had emotional needs that were met by me.
Mhm.
And my personality type is like, I've already got the decision made. Like you ask it, you get it.
Mhm.
And my personality is also like ready, fire, aim. I'll fire up and then I'll calibrate. Some changes, I'll shift. I believe in failing forward. I believe in failing
Mhm.
fast. I'm fine making the wrong decision and then pivoting later. So yeah, and then like from a cultural perspective, I'm half Greek, half Italian, and my heritage is really just like a lot of extremely, you know, nurturing, caring, compassionate, but passionate, strong
Mhm.
women. And so they've got the answers. The women, they've got the
Mhm.
answers. And I love it in my big fat Greek wedding, the first one where she says, men are the head of the house and the women
I
are the
like that.
neck. And the woman gets to turn the head however she wants. It's like, so you basically just let them pretend that it was their idea and you just influence it from the background. But like the decisions are being made
Right.
by the women. And that's just kind of like how I grew up. So decisions weren't scary
Mhm.
for me. And I think that word is huge, is because if it's not scary, there's not fear that's going to influence or delay
Mhm.
that process
Yeah.
too much. And it's not that I don't have some people pleasing tendencies, because I
Mhm.
do. I'm an Enneagram 8. So the decisions are going to come quick, they're going to come fast, and then I'm going to pivot.
Mhm.
But I also have a 9 wing that makes me really want, especially if I'm unsure or if there's not confidence or competence behind it, I'm going to really want to know how it's going to impact others.
Mhm.
So there is that part of me as well that can go more to where you were talking
Yeah.
about, Mary, that piece that's like, well, I want to be considerate
Mhm.
of others and how it's going to impact them. But it's not the first thought. It's not the
Yeah.
first thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
It comes into it,
Uh-huh.
especially when I'm like, I don't really feel competent here.
Mhm.
Then I'm going to lean into that. But otherwise, yeah, it's not my first
Yeah.
thought.
I think it's funny because, like, I think about like what you're saying. Like, there, I hear confidence in the
Hmm.
decision making process. Well, for me, I kind of reflect really quickly, and like there is some confidence in some of my decisions, but then there's that hesitancy of like, is this the right one to make?
Hmm.
Do I really want to do this? Is this what I
Hmm.
should be doing, or is this important? How's it going to affect me
Hmm.
like later? And I've tried to stop myself essentially to say, just do it. Just make it. It's okay. Just live in the moment. It's fine. Like even simple things of like, where should I eat today just to treat
Hmm.
myself?
Hmm.
The spiral, the loop is like, well, do we really need to spend money? Is that really what you want to eat today?
Hmm.
Is that your favorite thing? Are we craving that? And then it gets to a point where I'm like halfway home, don't even do it, you
Yeah.
know?
But do you see how you started with a good intention
Yeah.
and then
Hmm.
like the brain got involved and the outcome was not a good one.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
No,
I mean,
yeah.
and I feel like we all tend to do that. So like the intention is to treat myself.
Right.
And then when my brain got involved, all that went
Of that.
to the wayside. And so like I really, in just my personal life and then also just in my work, I'm like, well, let's just focus on the intention. What's the intention? And what is like that deeper level desire? And if that's good and that feels right in your body, mind,
Mhm.
and spirit, like move into it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
That's fine. You can always make changes. I don't believe really in bad decisions.
Mhm.
Yes, there's negative outcome. Okay, fine. Like there's
Right.
negative outcome, there's unwanted outcomes, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't right at the time with the information you had.
Mhm.
If people really get paralyzed in that decision part, because it's like, well, what if the outcome's bad? And what does that say about me? Nothing.
Mhm.
It says nothing about you.
Yeah.
It just says that you needed to collect more data
Mhm.
and change your mind. And I know that certain personality types really struggle with that concept of I changed my mind.
Yeah.
Like, I went into it with good intentions and it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wish I knew where that was from in the sense of I think it's either Taoist or Buddhist, but I'm leaning towards Taoist, which is it's not a bad or good outcome. It's just the outcome and how you react to it.
That's right. And when people then reflect it back on them, well, what does it say about me that the outcome was bad?
Mhm.
That can be like a
Yeah.
real spiraling type of
Mhm.
thing. And then you've got all those negative core beliefs and limiting beliefs that come into play. And it's like, it says nothing about you.
Mhm.
It says you had good intentions. It felt like it was aligned at the time. You moved into it and the outcomes kind of like went wonky. Okay, pivot.
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything about you as a person. But I think like when those limiting beliefs get involved, it's like, see, I told you, you can't make
Mhm.
good
Yeah.
decisions. You're not good enough. You don't
Yeah.
deserve good things, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I get then why you don't want to make more
Right.
decisions.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
it's,
So much bias from it.
yeah. And your nervous system's like, I don't want to make a
Yeah.
decision.
It's funny. I
Yeah.
think also think like when you say nervous system and making decisions, like there's a training I went to that was doing like somatic work and attachment theory
Hmm.
together. And when we got down to, I think it was like, is it disorganized that
Hmm.
that it's like where if the caretaker doesn't respond a lot,
Hmm.
the presenter talked about like the unwinnable situations,
Mm.
like where oh, mom or dad says clean your room for you to go to the activity you want to go to, but then they start nitpicking.
Hmm.
And then it's like, well, you didn't do this right. And so that unwinnable situation like makes that person who has that attachment style unable to trust themselves in their own decision making. And like the examples they give are like even simple like that. What do you want to eat? What would you like to do later this afternoon? They're like, I don't know, just make the decision for me. And
Yeah.
I think that's just so sad because I'm like, you have a say in this, but it's been brought up that you can't trust yourself to make the right
Right.
decision.
And in that scenario, the messages being constantly sent is even if you make a decision, it's not a good enough
Right.
decision, or it's
Mhm.
not the right decision, or it's not going to earn you the outcomes that you're
Mhm.
looking
Mhm.
for. And if like that's happening over and over,
Mhm.
of course, decisions are going to be scary
Yeah.
and our nervous system's going to get dysregulated. And when our nervous system is
Mhm.
dysregulated, then guess what? Our frontal lobe goes
All
offline
right.
and you can't make good decisions.
Mm.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think a lot of people are making decisions when they're dysregulated
Mhm.
and then they're beating themselves up over them not being good decisions.
Mhm.
So, like, I think that's a problematic cycle,
Yeah.
So it's like, what are we doing to get still, to be clear, to get grounded, so that when you step into a decision, you know that it came from that place of like good intention and wise mind. I mean, I was talking to a client about the other day, and when we were doing EMDR, one of the things that came up, brains are just so freaking amazing, was I think I need to be still.
Mhm.
I think I need to be still before I move into decisions, because one of her
Mhm.
negative core beliefs is like, I don't make good decisions.
Mm.
And what came up was like, actually, like I do. I make some freaking amazing
Yeah.
decisions, but sometimes I make them on the fly when I'm scared. Yeah.
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 I'm kind of thinking that too. Like, I watch one of my favorite shows is SVU, and there's an episode with Olivia Benson where I think she just turned sergeant or lieutenant,
Mm.
and her boyfriend at the time was like asking dinner, like, do you want this place, that place, white rice, brown rice, chicken, beef, whatever, and she's like,
Oh,
let's make a decision. And like related to her on so many levels because I feel like a lot of us like when we talk dysregulation, I think too, like at the end of our days especially all three of us who are clinicians, we are tapped out mentally and
Hmm.
emotionally, and we just want somebody to make that decision for us because there's nothing else we can give. There's no more energy in that way. At least from my perspective, that can be for me that I just need somebody to do it for me because I can't give anymore.
And oftentimes, I need my decisions to be limited.
Hmm.
So, like, I mean, you know me, you do a lot of work with me and for me, and it's like, give me three choices. Because
Yeah.
of course, I can make a really wise decision when it comes from a place that's already been minimized and I'm grounded in that. But I love that you brought up the menu
Hmm.
because we talk all the time about being triggered, being dysregulated, out of our window of tolerance. And when you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, well, you get to a restaurant, you're freaking hungry and
Right.
drooling by the time you're looking at that menu. And so, what my
Yeah.
mind does is I scroll real quick, find one thing, and I go
Go
for
for
it.
it.
Because I know that if I get in the weeds when I'm
Hmm.
dysregulated, then I can't make up my mind.
Yeah.
'Cause everything sounds good.
Good.
So it's like, I'm gonna find one thing
Yeah.
and go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
That's why the other
It's a
night we were out, she said the special, and I was like, done.
we're
That
good.
special, you're putting time and energy into that. I'm going with the
Yeah.
special.
No, and it's funny because like even like neurodivergent like people I'm learning too, like they also again I fall into that category of like when it comes to eating, we push it to the limit
Oh yeah.
to where we're very hungry and it's like when we do start to go eat, nothing seems good because we're
It's past the
looking,
point.
it's past the point, or our brains are looking for that certain like dopamine food.
Hmm.
And so here we are stuck in being hungry, and we'll search back and forth to the kitchen to see, like, okay, has it changed? It hasn't, but we're hoping it changes.
I'm gonna open the fridge, and this time, miraculously,
A sandwich is going to appear that it wasn't there.
the perfect sandwich. Yes, yes. That's
Yeah.
great. That's great.
When it comes to that dysregulation piece you're talking about, it reminds me of the cultural influence. It's more of an aspiration than what I'm able to do all the time.
Hmm.
Which I credit my dad to this. He grew up working on a farm and then he got into the mining industry, family mining industry. So the things that come to my mind in decision making and I aspire to is straightforward, simple, simplify it, and then with some empathy.
I
That's
love it.
nice. Yeah.
I love it. And say that again. So straightforward.
Straightforward, simplify, and with some empathy.
Hmm.
Mm.
Hmm. Sounds a little bit like what our journal helps people work through.
Oh,
Mm.
why don't you tell me more?
I mean, it just really does because we talk about
Yeah.
like making it easy.
Yeah.
We talk about like simplifying it, making it so freaking easy that you can't not do the next right
Hmm.
thing, you know? And then that straightforward piece is like, I'm coming back to the same thing every day. And there's like a big why behind it. So
Hmm.
it's clear, it's concrete, you know, it's accessible. It's all of those things which allows for you to stand behind a decision. Right. Yeah, I think that's excellent.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's excellent.
Hmm.
And I was thinking about it since I know like this season is about a healthy journaling practice and the
Hmm.
benefits of a journaling practice and really getting into the weeds of our journal,
Hmm.
the Plan to Recover mini journal for recovery and self discovery. And so when we were going through this, I was like, I'm just going to turn to like one of the days in the journal. And every day we have prompts. And I was like, so if I'm struggling with a decision, how
Hmm.
does this journal actually help me process and maybe come to a wise-minded decision and moving forward to implement that? And so I was just going down my journal. And so just looking at like, so how did I feel today? All right. I felt a little anxious. I felt a little overwhelmed. I felt triggered. I felt threatened. So basically, my nervous system is
Yeah.
somewhat dysregulated. And you kind of come to the why of that. And well, it's because the struggle is
Hmm.
being asked to make a decision about something that has changing like ramifications potentially. And so it gives you this opportunity to walk through. It's like, okay, well, then offer yourself some self compassion first, and then we'll get
Hmm.
started. So the self compassion really comes in. It's like, what's my intention?
Hmm.
Who am I? What is my why? You know? And so you can come back to that and give yourself a lot of grace and say, you know what? You are well equipped to make this decision. You do have good data and
Yeah.
information to go off of. You know, let's move into that. And then it says, well, how do I want to feel tomorrow? Well, tomorrow I'd like to feel at peace. I'd like to feel gratified. I'd like to feel self assured in making this decision. So you have an opportunity then to be like, here's my notes to future self. So you can sit in that wise-minded decision, and then you go into the desired outcome. Okay, so this is the outcome that I desire and how I would achieve that outcome. And then you just take a moment to pause and imagine that. Imagine living that out, what it would look like to have that challenging conversation or discussion, or, you know, if you're being asked to be like assertive or set a boundary or something, you can imagine that happening. And then you give yourself an opportunity. It's like, after tomorrow, after I do that scary thing, knowing that I have really good intentions and I'm very grounded in my decision, like, how do I reward myself?
Mm.
Do I go out to eat? What do I do? But it just gives you an opportunity. I know that's just one day, and not every day do we have to make big decisions.
Mm.
But if you're engaging in a daily journaling practice, it really can help you
Yeah.
when you're trying to figure out this thing called life, where we're asked to make thousands of decisions every day, some of them life changing, but every single one of them important. So just a thought,
Yeah.
just a thought there.
I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just pull out the journal. Yeah, like, you can engage in this. It'll help with your decision making. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
no
much.
problem. Thank you.